Hey folks, Hammeh here. I'm going to be summing up the latest developments in the Sombra ARG with all of the Sombra and Lumerico goings on as of recently, and then I'm going to jump into a lore exploration to see what we may or may not have learnt lore-wise from the latest in this alternate reality game. There's some interesting bits to do with Sombra, Lumerico, Guillermo Porto, the president of Lumerico, and more, so I want to jump into the lore analysis too. Firstly, let's quickly round up how we've got here. So from the last step a couple of days ago, where we'd seen that Sombra had Bastion, take a look in my video below if you need to get caught up, an Overwatch patch then went live. Someone found out that if you take Bastion close to a Sombra protocol terminal on Dorado, you hear the following. Now that's actually Morse code. Someone from the game detectives community managed to find that if you used a Vignere cipher, and again I've explained that in my other Sombra video below, and used the passcode that we got in a previous part of this game, it could be solved into access www.lumerico.mx. Now Lumerico of course are a Mexican company headed up by Guillermo Porto, ex-president of Mexico and also war hero. They're the people who are making the power plants, trying to make a clean energy network, rebuilding Mexico's infrastructure after the Omnic crisis. So the Lumerico website is in theory a corporate portal for this company. Now at the bottom some clever people found a phone number. If you ring this phone number, this is what you hear.
Gracias por llamar al soporte técnico de Numérico. Por favor, seleccione una de las siguientes opciones. 5, 2, 4, 1, 3. 23, 4, 14, 8, 6, 18, 17, 23, 21, 18, 15.
Now the woman's speaking in Spanish and she says a string of numbers. The second part, if you swap letters for numbers, A is 1, B is 2 and so forth, translates into a text string. And then after it's rotated 23 times, it then becomes take control. And apparently that's a ROT23 cipher. Now remember the initial code 52413, that becomes important in a little bit. Phone message then led to a more significant page on the site, lumerico.mx /take control /index.html. It's very much styled up the same way as a momentincrime.com and has the signature Sombra sugar skull icon. As with previous ciphers in the Sombra alternate reality game, this is a transposition cipher. Now when it was switched and used with the key that we got from the phone call, 52413, the result was this body of text. Sombra congratulates us for getting in and wants to take down Guillermo Portero. Now she gives some reasoning behind this. We're going to come back to that later in lore analysis because I think this is quite interesting. Sombra then encourages us to explore more deeply and gives us the password of a Lumerico employee. Now the clever thing is that you can actually use these to log into the Lumerico site. Give it a go if you haven't already. I'll put all the information in the description below. You can discover some bits about Lumerico from Flores' email, his new keyboard arriving, a problem with the coffee machine from a maintenance email address, and a party to celebrate the Dorado plant opening on November the 1st. I think everyone's going to be keeping an eye open for that date to see what happens next. One of the emails also flagged another page called lumerico.mx /president bypass. Now some very clever users, part of the Game Detectives community, and again I've linked the whole working to this and the Game Detectives wiki in the description below, dumped the data, uploaded it to GitHub due to a reference to .git within it, and managed to get some PHP files. They reverse encrypted them somehow and managed to get Guillermo Portero's username and his encrypted password. So with the president of Lumerico's login, we then had a look inside his email. Finally, a little bit later, a message popped up from Sombra. I see you've been able to infiltrate the mail. Do not worry, he can't see it. I need some more time. Stay tuned until early next week. So with that, Sombra finally rounding up the puzzle means that we're going to have to keep an eye out on maybe October 24th or 25th, given that today and yesterday this all happened on the 19th and 20th. We're going to have to wait and see what happens then. So that's the latest part of the ARG. Now what I want to jump into in a little bit more detail and think about is what we learn lore-wise from this. There are some interesting things that come up. I'm also going to talk about the Sombra leak later. I'll flag when that's going to happen, so if you want to stay spoiler-free, you can jump away at that point. Hang on in for now though. Firstly, what do we know about the various players? There's a lot of different people in play here. Now, Guillermo Portero, in case you haven't read about him, is an ex-war hero. He's ex-president of Mexico, and he's now CEO of Lumerico. He wants a clean energy network for all of Mexico, and Lumerico's goal was very much putting together this power plant network to clean up Mexico after the infrastructure was destroyed during the first Omnic crisis. Portero was actually interviewed by Atlas News in a blog that I'll link below as well, saying, "It's a great moment for Mexico. As president, it was his dream to repair the infrastructure destroyed during the crisis, and also trying to make it the envy of the world." The last sentence is a little bit sinister, I think. Now we turn our attention to the future and to others who might benefit from our country's leadership. Sounds a little power hungry, maybe not. What do you think? Okay, next party we've got in play is Los Muertos. Now, Sombra actually mentions these in her email, but we already know them as a gang from Dorado, and they also have graffiti in Hollywood, associated with, we've seen, petty street crime and smuggling weapons, and Soldier 76 has investigated them slightly in his short already, Hero. Atlas News also comment on them. Little is currently known about the organisation. Most consider them to be lawless and opportunistic, but their members style themselves as revolutionaries, representing those left behind by the government after the devastation of the first crisis. That mission stands in stark contrast to their methods and the overwhelming evidence of their criminal activities. Now, for Los Muertos, we've seen a truck that they use. Same registration is in the Hero animated short, and it's also the one actually in the Dorado level delivering the new reactor to the power plant. A tie between the two, or just reuse of a model? An interesting point there. We're not entirely sure where Los Muertos stand on the moral compass. Soldier 76, I mention him as a player because he has fought Los Muertos, presumably in Hero, sees them as a cancer on the city from his voice lines, and also wants to know what Lumerico have been up to. So, in his trip through Mexico, Soldier 76 presumably doesn't believe that anyone here is up to much good. Finally, of course, we have Sombra, a hacker who is working with Reaper, that we definitely know, and potentially Talon, due to her mention in Anna's comic Old Soldiers. I'm going to go into the Sombra leak now, so you may want to check out my Hero voice lines and lore series link below, or something else if you don't want spoilers. Okay, so, from the Sombra leak, if this leak is true, and it's increasingly looking like it might be due to the mentioning of Junkenstein's revenge brawl at the very top of this image that then came true in the Halloween update, Sombra's bio that's mentioned might be true too. What does it say? Well, she apparently lost everything during the Omnic crisis. She worked with Los Muertos until apparently things got too hot and she had to go underground, and she was potentially recruited by Talon. Finally, at the bottom of the image, it says, although Sombra is happy to work with ... From the emails that we've seen, she also has bad feelings towards Guillermo and Lumerico as well, and the combination of all the above brings up some interesting questions about potential lore and where this might go. Firstly, Guillermo Portero. We know he's a war hero. That fact, I'm assuming, is undisputable. In his emails, he mentions twice about trying to make sure that his staff are taking their paid holiday, not overworking themselves and similar, and actually has conversations with some of his senior team members about this kind of thing. Now, granted, this could all be a front, but it doesn't immediately make him a bad guy just because Sombra said so. Guillermo did sound a bit sinister in the last line of his Atlas News article, as I already mentioned, but are Portero and Lumerico as bad as we think? Finally, Sombra and Lumerico. So Sombra's statements on Lumerico are interesting. As we've seen, she doesn't like them. But then I would say, why is she working with Talon? In Sombra's hack to us as part of the ARG's most recent section, she says, let's take down Lumerico Corp president. Why? Because he's greedy and corrupt and an abominable thief. The power plant plan is nothing more than an elaborate plan by his gang to become even more influential and get more money. And who's going to pay for that? Common people, the ones that are always forgotten. Los Muertos are also trying to go against the corruption. So Sombra believes that Los Muertos are actually trying to oppose a corrupt force in Portero and Lumerico. Sombra doesn't like Portero, and she's allied or potentially used to work with Los Muertos. But, and this is my point here, if Sombra likes sticking up for common people and is still trying to help them here, then why is she working with Talon, who are quite happy to kill common people? As we've seen in McCree's comic Trainhopper, Talon aren't too worried about collateral damage. Isn't there a bit of a moral conflict there? It could depend on Talon's aims, of course, but still, it seems to be at odds with what Sombra is saying in this email, if she's really looking out for the people of her homeland, assuming she's from Mexico. Going back to the final bit of the leak image, it does say, while Sombra seems content to work with. Now, if the copy in that image is good, along with everything else, as I said, it's looking more likely considering the brawl part at the top here came true, then I think that leaves room for Sombra to perhaps change her mind about whoever she's working with right now, e.g. maybe Reaper and Talon. Is there a redemption story arc for Sombra in there? Let me know your thoughts. One thing's for sure, I don't think that Portero, Lumerico and Sombra are as black and white as previously we might have thought. Cheers for tuning in to this Sombra ARG update of what we may have learned about the story right now. Do check out my other Overwatch Sombra ARG summaries, but also all of my lore videos on heroes, voice lines interactions, and the whole world of Overwatch in these links here. If you like this video, do like, subscribe and comment. I'd love to see you again soon. Cheers for tuning in. I'm Hammeh. Take it easy.